And welcome to the Sloppy Syndicate Show. We have Ultimatum in the green room waiting to come in to pleasure your ear holes. They are based out of Thunder Bay, Ontario. And we are going to play one of their newest tracks, unreleased. We're going to give you a sneak peek of it. So as we bring Ultimatum in, we are going to play that song, and I hope you enjoy it. And that is a phenomenal song, unreleased. I was able to listen to the entire song. We are streaming live on Twitch and YouTube at the moment. So, folks, if you have any questions out there, do not hesitate to throw them in the chat. And let's go ahead and welcome Ultimatum in from Thunder Bay, Ontario, the Great North. So, how are we doing?
Good, Johnny. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. How's the weather up there in Ontario? Is it freezing this time still, or?
Not as nice as we'd like it. We still have snow on the ground here, and it's
Oh.
starting to get a bit warmer, but it's it's a bummer. Typically, we'd have just grass at this point, but we're not there yet. So we had a pretty snowy winter this year. So
Well, just to let you know, we're like 84 and kind of cloudy down here in Florida. So, rub it in a little bit.
oh man,
just trying to rub it in.
envious.
Right. I'll send some good vibes your way, some good sunshine. So, uh, like I said, you're based out of Thunder Bay, Ontario. And typically I like to kind of describe a band, who they may remind me of. And you guys have made this very difficult. I cannot pinpoint it. You guys have such a unique sound, unique vocals, very soothing vocals. Some of the songs I could fall asleep to. It's that soothing. So if I could put a name, I would probably say Mumford and Sons, but a lot more mellower. So you have you have pianos in your songs. It's just go ahead and explain it because I'm not going to do it justice.
Sure. Well, you know what? It's we run into this all the time, Donnie. Like every single album we release sounds entirely different, right? Like the last album we released last year, Born in the Afterglow, was a little bit more kind of what you're discussing, a little bit more of a softer approach. A lot of piano influence, kind of heavily ballad driven. Where this new album is the antithesis of that. So we're going to go in a completely different direction. We've infused a lot of different kind of like techno styles with some really heavy drums, heavy guitar with a lot of guitar like Maiden style harmonies,
Okay.
and then like a poppy vocal that kind of sits on top of everything. So we kind of teased this a little bit in the last album. There was two songs, Hold You and Fire in Your Eyes, that had a little bit of that synth influence. And we got a really good reception kind of across the globe on those songs, in magazine interviews and stuff like that, and articles. And so we wanted to kind of write an album that was dedicated to that kind of late 90s techno infused hard rock, and just come up with a completely different sound that's never, kind of never been heard before, at least by us anyways. Right. So, but it's always interesting when other people kind of compare who they think we sound like to. Someone just said The Cure not long ago. Actually, one of the other artists from our record label said The Cure, which I love The Cure. Yeah, but I didn't that wasn't my intent when writing these songs. Like,
Right.
in terms of sounding like a specific artist, listen to a lot of different artists, I think, as a collective, the four of us. So, and it just naturally happens. We have a natural kind of signature sound, and it all depends on what we're listening to and what we're inspired by at the time. It kind of seeps its way in and comes through our own little melting pot and comes out the other end. So
Absolutely. And that album, Born in the Afterglow, is phenomenal. There's a few songs on there, Deal with the Devil, All Night. I mean, every song on there you'll probably fall in love with. So definitely check them out. And like you said, you've had articles written, in magazines and that. I know you guys are big in Scotland. So tell us where, you're based out of Canada. So we're on opposite sides of, the North American continent. so we don't really get much of your music down here, and vice versa. You probably may not get much of our Florida-based music. So, tell the listeners out there, you're big in Scotland. What are describe to us what Scotland, Ireland. Are you kind of Canadian, UK, and Scotland based, or?
Well, it was, yeah, no, that's a great point. It was interesting because we went on a little tour of Ontario because we're located in Ontario, Canada. And we came back, and when we got back from that tour, we got an email from a record label in Reading, Pennsylvania. So an American label as Canadian artists. So that was big for us because up until that point, we were primarily dealing with the local scene here in Thunder Bay, right? Which was good a couple of years back, and it's still going strong. But we were ready to expand. So we got an email that was very direct, and it was from the Depths, and they wanted to represent us as one of their artists. And we were like, this is amazing, right? We can reach a larger audience through this. And through that connection, we were able to land, different collaborations. We collaborated with a rapper in Las Vegas, and that was kind of a cool experience. And then from that point on, we started to get some exposure in a few different American magazines. And then through our label, we actually landed on Castle FM, which is a radio station in Edinburgh, Scotland, and that was a big thing. And that kind of just started the kind of the train rolling in Europe, where through that process and through our label and just other media outlets hearing us on the radio, we were able to then land a bunch of different magazines over in Europe. For whatever reason, the UK seems to be a big kind of fan of ours, which is amazing. I'm originally, my family actually, we come from the UK, so that was kind of a little dream of mine to get some recognition over there. And for whatever reason, it's kind of now working its way back into Canada. So it kind of went to America, then it went overseas, and now it's coming back, where we're doing a few different interviews and stuff in Canadian-based radio stations and magazines, which is kind of nice how that works. But we were so focused on getting exposure at that point to an almost obsessive point where we wanted to just keep it going. Our main objective is to have as many people listen to our music as possible, because our art is a bit of an extension of our personalities, and we just want to share that with the world. So we look at every one of these opportunities as a way to do that, right? A way to expand our audience and be able to share our music with the world.
And that's how the music industry should be. Everyone builds everybody up, and we all rise together. But it's very unique and very cool to see how you guys, like you said, you have an American label, and then you kind of branched out to, Europe, and then you're getting bigger in Canada now and North America. So, it's phenomenal to even cross paths with Altamadum, and to have you on the show, and then just to see where the music is actually going. Excuse me. So the song I played earlier is In My Blood. So that's an unreleased single that is coming out. We also have another unreleased single that is coming out, and that is Run From You. So is there going to be an EP on that, or what are you guys thinking?
Absolutely. Well, actually, Run From You, it was released last month.
Oh, my bad.
No, that's all good, Donnie. Yeah, we were released, and that was kind of like we were kicking around ideas, because so our next album is called In My Blood. The track we heard earlier was the self-title, or the title track off the album. So we have 10 songs on the album that's going to be dropping later this year. And we were kind of thinking, okay, well, what's the best song that represents these 10 songs, right? And they're like I said, they're all very up tempo, they're all very techno infused, just kind of cool maiden guitar riffs and heavy technical drums over top, but with very hooky choruses. So very like kind of poppy, catchy choruses. And we figured Run From You would be a good starting point, just because it was the antithesis of what we did with Afterglow, in terms of it kind of being more in your face and a little bit heavier. So we wanted to kind of have that be kind of like the one that caught everyone's attention before we release In My Blood, which is a little bit more radio friendly. And then the idea, like I said, is to release a third single with then following it by the actual release date of the album. So our goal isn't, we released an EP a few years back called Anybody Out There, and I don't think we're going to release one this time around. We may release a deluxe edition, because there were 2 songs that didn't make the cut of 10. So
Okay.
hard to say what that's going to look like, but it's a 10-track album That's about 40-ish minutes, I think, in runtime. So
Yeah, and a lot of your songs are anywhere from 4 to 6 minutes, which is nice. I like longer songs myself. You know, there's some songs that are 2 minutes and 20 seconds. You just get in the vibe, and then it's like, all right, the song's done. But you know, so you guys do overall have a longer length per song than most artists do. You know, so let's kind of go back to COVID, and how did that affect you guys as a band, or how did that elevate you as a band?
yeah, that's great. When COVID hit, it kind of shocked us a little bit because we couldn't play live anymore, and I think a lot of artists, musicians especially, were feeling kind of that lack of being able to go out there and actually being able to connect with audiences and play shows. And so instead of letting that hinder our process, we were so fortunate. We have a studio here in Thunder Bay and our own producer, and that's Thunder Sound Studio. And we're incredibly fortunate because if it wasn't for that, I don't know if we would have kind of lasted through the COVID experience. So during that time, we were really able to write and release Born in the Afterglow, and then In My Blood, that's going to be coming out shortly as well. So we really wanted to capitalize on kind of a tragic thing. Obviously, we don't want to make light of the COVID, but we wanted to take advantage of that and really build connections in terms of the global market, and really be able to reach out to people like such as yourself, right, and have these conversations. And not only that, but also write music. So what COVID allowed us to do was almost write twice as fast because we were like isolated, and we were
Right.
sending ideas back and forth. So my singer would be sending ideas, Sam Muka, to us, and we'd be listening to them and kind of formulating ideas before we were able to get back in the studio and actually start writing and recording. So that allowed us to write quicker, and it also allowed us to because we went to like 6 different lockdowns here in Thunder Bay, so in Ontario actually. So we took those opportunities when we were in lockdown to really press the press release and really kind of push the music, and take time to have these conversations before we jump into another album. Because in the past we've been kind of infamous for we've been called prolific in some of the reviews because we just release one after the other. So we wanted to kind of take that time, stop for a second, really celebrate what we just did, and then start the writing process. So yeah, so I'd say our fan base, or our listeners, have probably doubled
Okay.
since COVID, which has been amazing, right? Which is funny because, like I said, we haven't been playing shows. So I think COVID showed us that we can actually reach a larger audience through social media or platforms such as this than we can just playing a local show.
Right. Absolutely. And so you guys obviously took full advantage of the quarantine by writing songs and you know getting things ready to go. So when the time as now, when things are starting to get back to a little bit of normalcy, you guys are ready to rock and roll. So, um, you were talking about releasing the single "In My Blood" and releasing a maybe two more singles before you release the full album. So, I've noticed a lot of bands releasing singles, before the album. What do you think contributes to that?
Well, so we did a horrible job on the last album in terms of that because we didn't release any singles. We dropped the album, and it was kind of like it was a lot for people to digest, especially because it was a departure from our earlier sound. Our earlier sound is a little bit heavier. So it was kind of like, what is this, right? So we didn't focus necessarily on the single. So this time around, why we wanted to release Run From You ahead of time is we wanted to give people a taste and really kind of push it and promote it and say, this is what you can expect. Because once again, we're going in a different direction. We're keeping that core sound, like we're keeping our signature sound, but we're incorporating so many different influences into the mix. So we wanted to prepare, I guess, our listeners for what was about to transpire. So our goal with the singles is primarily to send out hooks to kind of showcase what this album is actually going to be about. So we're trying to pick 3 of the more diverse songs across the spectrum to be able to give people a good taste as to what to expect for the album. But the thing is that all 10 songs have their own kind of unique flavor. Like I'm actually just looking at a list of them right now in the studio, and it's like it's hard. Like it's hard to pick and choose what ones we want to release because we all have our favorites, right?
Right.
So In My Blood seems to be a favorite of all of us, just because it's very dancey, up tempo. It kind of gets caught in your head when you listen to it,
Right.
a few times. It's very hooky. So, yeah, that's our intent with the singles, is just to give people a taste, and also to kind of draw it out over a longer period of time. That way, we're not just saying, "Here you go, here's a full album." We're able to kind of, digest, I guess, each individual single before we give the full thing. So.
And as well along the way, build more followers, listeners, and like you said, dropping a one full album is kind of like boom in your face, where this is kind of gradually leading up to one full album. And you're correct. I'm glad you touched on your previous music from 2016, 2017 ish. A little bit heavier. Still same core sound. I enjoyed that as well. So did you guys take a break from 2017, or just kind of focused on the album of the Afterglow? Excuse me, Born in the Afterglow.
Well, yeah, no, that's a great point. Actually, that's something that I kind of wanted to touch on. We did. It looks like on TuneCore or on any music streaming platform, it looks like we kind of dropped 2 albums in 1 month, but we didn't. We wanted to. I think it was 2019. We wanted to release packages. So we released after the 2017 release. We released Through Motion Chronicles, which was like an 8-track album, but we released them in chunks of 2.
Okay.
So we staggered the release, and then we didn't renew them. We dropped it as a full-length album right before we dropped Born in the Afterglow. So we tried that, and it was kind of an interesting way to do it. It's kind of like the single idea, where we wanted to give people just 2 songs per chunk to kind of listen to and digest before we hit them with the next one. So it was interesting. I think it was innovative because I haven't heard of anyone else doing that. I think that was our bass player, James Cole. I think that was his kind of brainchild, and we all kind of thought it was a really unique way, and we got behind it and supported it. So, but yeah, and then Afterglow. After that, we spent most of that year releasing Born in the Afterglow, and then after that was released, we went into lockdown again and did the press piece, and then we got right as soon as we could get back into the studio, we were kind of riffing on different ideas for In My Blood, right? And we just kind of went to work on it right away again. So in that time, we did different things. Like we did some local TV appearances, and like I said, always trying to kind of album press release, kind of that kind of progression. And since we couldn't do the shows, it kind of skipped that section, so it allowed us to move quicker on the writing process and quicker on the promotion side of things.
Absolutely. So with such a unique sound, what are some of your musical influences, growing up, leading you into the music industry?
Ooh, we can probably both answer that.
That's probably a loaded question, I know, but it's
No,
always nice to see,
yeah.
where you get your influences from.
So I can go first. My dad's record collection played a big role. I got my producer here. He's laughing because he and I like a lot of the same music as well. But my dad's record collection, like I grew up on like Zeppelin, and
Okay.
just like a huge fan of the 70s. Not just 70s hard rock, but just like Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, even Fleetwood Mac, right? Like I love Lindsey Buckingham's picking style, and Pink Floyd. Obviously, that was huge. Gilmore played a huge role in my kind of solo, kind of freestyle solo playing. But then 80s hair metal, kind of ashamed to say it, but not really. It's that played a big role in Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. That for me was like the holy grail album. I studied that inside and out, and Slash became just such a massive influence on me, and Jimmy Page, and even Rush, Alex Lifeson, Canadian group. And right up until like 90s, like the kind of that English invasion that happened in the 90s with the alternative scene and the grunge scene, and right up to modern day, Avenged Sevenfold. And even some, I like right now, I listen to a lot of kind of 80s new wave, and also a lot of kind of newer alternative music, just because it's interesting. It doesn't sound, it's kind of like what we're striving to do. It doesn't sound like anything I've heard. My ear gravitates towards new sounds and something different. I don't want to hear the same thing over and over again because it's been done, right?
Right.
So I'm always looking for new innovative sounds that I can also not adopt, but I can be inspired by, and I can kind of leverage to pick up the guitar and want to, write a brand new song, or You know, and we get inspired by all sorts of things, not just music. But yeah, those are a few of my influences. I listen to a lot of obscure music, but I listen to everything from jazz to blues to techno to like it's pretty eclectic. I'm not a huge modern country fan, but that's the one thing I'm not a huge fan of. But what about you, Brendan?
Like to rebound off what Cam is saying, I listen to lots of hard rock music like Kiss, Motley Crue, Motley Crue, Queensryche, you know, all those 80s bands like Cam was listening to. I grew up listening to AC/DC and all bands from that area. And that's really what got me inspired to play the drums.
And
All music.
did you have any musical influences in your family? Were any family members a musician that kind of pushed you, or one you just kind of followed your passion of music?
Well, my dad was a drummer before I was,
Okay.
and you know he had kind of retired away from it for a while, but yeah, him and I just set up the drum set one day in a shed in our yard, and just started playing away. And you know, I'd put the headphones in after school with the Discman at the time, and I would just start learning how to play simple beats, and it just progressed and got bigger and bigger from there on until today.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say for me, my biggest musical influence in terms of my family wasn't like my dad doesn't play an instrument, but he was definitely a big proponent of kind of me wanting to learn because he was a music fan, right? Like he had a big record collection, and I was attracted to the artwork on the albums, right? Like I remember sitting there and looking at the actual artwork and discovering the music while I was discovering this artwork, right? And figuring out who the band was or the artist was, and and kind of, following down that rabbit hole. And like I said, my dad doesn't play an instrument, but he was definitely in terms of my family, he was a big role model for me to want to pick up the guitar, even though he never picked up a guitar, right? So it's interesting how that works, how you can get inspired by different people kind of in your inner circle that aren't necessarily musicians, but it inspires me musically.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm very visual, like you said. I don't know how many albums or vinyls I picked up just due to the artwork. So if I see something that catches my eye, same thing. I'll dig into it, and I found so many old school vinyls that I'm like, never heard of them, but the music is great just because of the artwork. So also on the flip side, I found some not so good ones, but the artwork was better. So
Yeah, there's that too, right? Yeah,
so it's
bit of a
you know
gamble.
It's and I remember, like you were talking about the Discman, and I remember riding to school, and we lived in a small farm town in Michigan, and so not too far from you guys at that point. But they had the anti-skip CD or the
All right.
anti-skip Walkman, which didn't work worth a crap because every bump you hit on the school bus, it always skipped. But
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then I remember we ventured into MP3 players, and MP3 players were like the new cool thing to do. At that time, they were so expensive. So it's super cool to see how technology has advanced and how it has advanced, the music industry as well. Getting, like Ultimatum, I've, finding you guys or you finding me, just kind of like the musical networking per se. So
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's funny you say that too, Donnie, because it's like pros and cons, Like back in the day, like to get airplay, say in Scotland, we would have to go to Scotland and tour, right? But now we don't like I've never been to Scotland, right? Like so it's one of those things where it's so much more accessible. But then once again, the con to that would be that the music market is so oversaturated at this point for artists, right? So like the opportunities are there to be able to get your music heard all over the world, but there's such an abundance of music.
you have to find
But then
that.
yeah, exactly. But then that excites me as a listener because it's like it's limitless, right? Like the options are limitless. I can listen to whatever I want. It's all at the touch, at the touch of my fingertips, right? Through Spotify or Apple Music or any streaming platform. So it's phenomenal, and it's also not ideal when it comes to being an artist. But I think
Right.
I think there are probably more pros than cons if you just find ways to kind of capitalize and become innovative and just find different ways to kind of get exposure, right?
Yeah. And like you said, being an artist, you have to, definitely have to catch their attention. And this day and day and age, especially with like TikTok, you have maybe 20, 30 seconds, if not less, to catch somebody's attention. So, um, so, I see the pros and cons there. Um, and it's crazy to me how many unsigned or even undiscovered or underrated bands that I've found. And I'm just like, such as yourself. I'm like, these guys are really good. Why are they not, touring the big stages? Um, so it's crazy to see how the music has, transpired over the years. What's up, Nick H? Thanks for coming in. Folks, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to throw them in the chat, and we'll throw it to Ultimatum and get them to, answer the question. So, being up in Thunder Bay area, what is the craziest? Tell us a crazy story of uh, a gig or something crazy that happened while you were playing a show.
Oh man, oh man, we got a list of those.
Right. I know.
I don't know. Do you have one at the top of your mind?
I'm trying to choose which one.
Well, there's a lot of kind of equipment related issues, right? Like I remember a few different. There was actually it wasn't us, but it was a band. There's a well-known Canadian band called Toronto, in Canada, and named after the city. And we were playing the CLE Coliseum, so it's a bigger venue. And it was such a weird venue. There was us, and then there was this hardcore screamo band, and then there was this Toronto's like a classic rock band. So it was the weirdest lineup, but it was really, really cool. So you get these this group that went up with a bunch like skinny jeans and these deep V-necks, right? And they're just screaming away, and it was pretty cool. And then the guitar player does this big guitar flip, and he has these little kind of clips on to keep his guitar on, right? But that didn't work, and the guitar went like so high in the air and landed right on Toronto's equipment, and it was like just like to watch it. I was embarrassed. Like I could not imagine.
Motion, like...
Yeah, I think the guitar player too. I think he just like walked behind his amp and just like crawled down, like it like pretending like it didn't happen. But it was and we've had a bunch of stories like that honestly in here. Like I remember this one show. I have this one of the guitars I have is this big flying V. It's like an LTD, I think, and it's just massive, right? And sometimes you lose sight of where everyone is on the stage. And I've done a few big guitar swings where I've clipped my singer in the face and he's bleeding, right? And he's like singing away, like singing his heart out. It just, I don't know. I think it intensifies the show, right? Like it's and people talk about it, right? Like you leave, right? And people are talking about the Ultimatum show where the singer bled all over the stage, right? So
yeah, the guitar player knocked his tooth out and he still kept going.
Yeah. A lot of things like that too, right? Like Brendan hit a girl in the audience with a drumstick in the back of the head at the end of the show.
Completely. Yeah, we were done our set for the night, and I don't know, everyone just turned away at the wrong time as I threw my drumstick, and it just happened to bounce off her head, and that didn't turn out very well. Let's put it that way. She gave me the dirtiest glare. I was like, oh, come on, really?
I was trying to give it to you. You turned around, not me.
Trying to be that cool drummer and throw the audience a drumstick, and well, that did not work.
And of course, it's the one girl in the audience that decides to turn around, right? Like it's just a complete couldn't be all the people around her still facing the stage. So
right. What's up, Ellie? Thanks for popping in. Yeah, I've, growing up, we had so many venues around Orlando, for music, and it was just crazy. Some of the things I saw, some of the things I did, back then it was a little more lenient where you could run on stage and jump off the stage, not hug the band or anything like that, but you could they'd let you get on stage and jump in the crowd. And I don't know how many people I've seen bite their face on the floor because nobody caught them, or heck, myself, I even fell a couple times, because they start taking you back as you're crowd surfing and people aren't paying attention. They're just like, bam, oh, all right, I'm on the ground. Totally. Yeah, I lost my wallet one time, and that was the last time I actually crowd surfed. So
oh boy, yeah, that'll do it, eh? Yeah, I think it's because of the adrenaline, right? Like you get such a massive rush of adrenaline when you play shows. It's like, even if something like that does happen where you get hit in the face by a guitar or whatever, it's like your adrenaline is pumping so hard you don't even feel it, right? There's
Right.
been so many
Absolutely.
shows I'll wake up the next day and I'll be like my neck is super sore just from kind of like bobbing my head on stage or whatever, right? So it's very euphoric. I find that it's a different beast. Like that's one of the things we learned too coming into Thunder Sound Studio was, recording to metric, like to time. Right now we have to be these disciplined musicians, right? And we were not disciplined at the time, right? Very undisciplined because we were just used to playing the live circuit here in Thunder Bay. So the difference between playing live and recording, it's entirely different, right? And I don't know if I have a preference. Like I was just thinking about this. I was talking to someone the other day, and I love seeing something come to fruition. Like I love being in the studio, writing a song, and seeing it come to life and sharing that with people. But I also love like I said, the adrenaline rush that you get not only playing a show, but before you get on stage. Like you get those butterflies, and even before doing the interview today, right? Like you get that little bit of anxiety, that little bit of adrenaline, right? But I know that's needed to harness to be able to put on a great performance, right? If I don't get nervous before a show, the show's going to come off poorly.
Yeah.
Because that's happened where I had a weird out of body experience one show. I didn't feel anything before the show. I went up on stage and I really wasn't feeling it. Like I got really paranoid. Like I was looking at the audience, like, what am I doing? Right? Like it felt like a little bit like a poser, right? And so I know that fear, I need to have that fear to be able to harness it. So when I get on stage, I turn that into adrenaline and put on the best show that we possibly can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I get nervous to this day every show. I'm like, all right, don't fuck up, Donnie. Don't fuck up. So
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
what's up, Daniel the Beard? Thanks for joining. Pleasure to have you in. But yeah, and there's some shows I'm just like, we all have that. We're like, you keep grinding, and then there's some shows that go better than others. But yeah, every show I still get the not butterflies, but I get anxious, and I'm just like, I'm like squirrel brain. So if I don't write something down, like and process it in my head, I'm just like I forget all about it. So I'll be like, oh, squirrel. What the hell was I talking about? So,
Yeah.
that's why before backstage we were kind of talking, and I was rehearsing some of the stuff to you, just so I could get it in my brain. Once I say it once or twice, it's there. But if I don't think about it, I'll forget it. Like I won't remember your name for 10 years, but I'll remember your face for the rest of my life. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
and so being up in Canada, are you guys big hockey fans? I know I grew up playing some hockey, so
Yeah, I grew up playing hockey too, up till about 10 or 12 years old.
okay. I still try to play, but yeah, I'm old now, so it's a little rough on the body when you go drop in and play a game. So
Yeah, I'm actually more of a football guy.
oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, I like NFL. I watch a lot of American football, so that's more my jam.
And it's nice because you have the NFL, then you have the CFL. So
That's
like
true.
when the NFL's done, then you can watch the CFL. So
That's very true. Not a huge CFL guy, to be honest, weirdly enough, but more of an NFL. I'm a Steelers fan, so
all right, I'll give that to you. I'm a Steelers fan.
nice.
Myself, being from Detroit, Red Wings all the way. The Pistons for basketball, they're all right. I've given up on the Lions. The Lions have sucked since Barry Sanders has left when I was a kid. So I've kind of transitioned to the Steelers. So I'm just kind of wondering how it's going to be without Big Ben this year. So that's going to
Yeah,
be
no kidding.
interesting.
Yeah, it will be for sure. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
The heyday with Trey Palomalu and Big Ben, and when they had the Rockin' team, and but Tomlin's a damn good coach. He's been there for quite a while, so I'm sure he'll pull something out.
I think so. Yeah, he's an excellent coach. Definitely. Young coach too, so.
So who's your favorite hockey team?
Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, all right. Nope. All right. Where's my delete button?
What?
Who's your team, Tommy?
Red Wings all the way.
Yeah, you just said that. Yeah.
So I got working on my Michigan sleeve, with the Red Wings. I got the Tigers, and so kind of my hometown sleeve. But yeah, I miss the Great White North every now and then. I'll go back once or twice a year if I can. And after about 3 days, I'm like, screw this weather. I'm ready to go home. Back to Orlando.
Compared to Florida. Yeah, definitely.
So any shows in the works? Any plans for some tours around Toronto or anything at the time? Or
Not yet. No, we have a bunch of like we have kind of radio shows lined up for the rest of the month, just kind of sporadically. And doing a lot of, like I said, just different press release stuff like magazines and like I said, hope to drop that next single, In My Blood, that we heard earlier in the show, in the next couple weeks. That's kind of our goal. And
okay,
then just really push that and then figure out what song we're going to drop next. But in terms of shows, like the restrictions are loosening now. So there are live shows again here. It's just, I think the vibe is a little bit, people are still kind of unsure of, how to deal with everything right now. So especially because we got really hit, like our area, Northwestern Ontario, we got hit pretty hard with COVID throughout this
okay,
experience. So it's, restrictions are loosening and people are eager to get back out there, but it's, not everyone is getting back out there right now. So it's kind
yeah,
of that weird holding pattern.
right. Like, oh, should I go? Should I not? Let me play it safe. Florida, we've been kind of wide open for the last 6, 7 months. The governor was just like, whatever, no restrictions. Go ahead, do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Um, so I was pretty, same thing. I was hesitant at first, and I was like, slowly kind of went out and started getting a little more comfortable as I went out. And knock on wood, like, I mean, I'm pretty healthy. I take my vitamins and everything else, and I never get sick. So knock on wood. Now that I said that, I probably will get sick, but whatever. But
Yeah. That's
uh,
how it goes.
so where can we find, for the folks listening to the podcast and can't see the website below, where can we buy merch? Where can we find Ultimatum? Where can we get in contact with you? Do you have vinyls? Do you have CDs, shirts? What do you guys have that we could support the band with?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have a website at the bottom of the screen, and it has some merch on there. But primarily, the best way, honestly, Donnie, to get in contact with us is through Instagram. That seems to be kind of the best way. We're always kind of proactively looking at our messages and responding very quickly. It's something that we kind of make a commitment to do regularly, whether it's other artists through the label or just other different making other connections. We're always looking forward for feedback and just to connect and have conversations. That's we love that, right? So but yeah, ultimatum.com is another good avenue to check out some past interviews. Like you mentioned, radio station in Scotland, we have an interview there, and we have a bunch of different songs and videos, and it's kind of like our central hub. Like, we have to update it, to be quite honest. It's been a while since we updated it, but it's a little bit dated. But it's an excellent website to go check out, and we have other socials. But like I said, typically the website or typically Instagram would be the best way to contact us.
Yep, and
Uh,
the website has a ton of articles, like you said. And I was browsing, reading some of the articles, and stumbled upon it. It's a little bit older, but you opened up for All That Remains.
yes, we did. Yeah.
That's one of my favorite bands.
Oh,
So
nice.
Cool.
I
Yeah, they
seen
put
that. I
on
was
an
like,
amazing
they opened
show.
for All That Remains. That's badass. So
We did. Yeah, we played a bit of a heavier set that night. Heavy for us anyways. It was yeah, it was a local show at one of our bigger venues, and yeah, it was a really cool experience. We played with a few different bands that night that were just excellent, but All That Remains were awesome dudes, and they put on a hell of a show, right? They got up there, and it was really, really, really a great experience, right? So we've been fortunate in that respect, where we have dealt with a lot of other, bigger artists that we've looked up to, and we've been able to meet and hang out with, and open for, or even in some cases, sometimes they'd have us open for them because they're coming to Thunder Bay, and if it's artists that we really love but aren't necessarily that big, they want an opening act that can kind of pull people in for the show, right? So we've had a few unique experiences like that, but yeah, All That Remains was definitely a cool experience.
yeah, definitely a good group of guys. Grew up with them on not didn't grow up with them, but grew up listening to them anyway. Um, so past or present, who uh, anyone past or present, who would you want to share the stage with?
Oh,
I'm going Johnny Cash. So
Johnny Cash, yeah, that's a good choice. It did, I don't know. Um, I'm a big fan of the Smiths. Um,
okay,
yeah, I love the Smiths. If they got back together and we played a show with them, that would be unreal. Or if somehow we could resurrect John Bonham and play with Led Zeppelin, that would be like, I mean, at that point, I think I would hang up my guitar and just say, yeah, okay, We've
I've made it.
yeah, we've crossed we've crossed the whole list off, right? And we've come full circle, and we can kind of slow down there. But yeah, it would probably have to be like one of the classic bands that I grew up listening to that I probably can't play with because the member's dead or they're just not together anymore. So I don't know. What do you think?
That's a tough question because like we all have so many favorite bands, right? I'll just say it would be nice to share the stage with Avenged Sevenfold. Like every member in the band listens to that group, and we all enjoy their music. We actually took a trip down to Minneapolis in 2014, just before we went on that world tour, the Ontario tour, and we got to see a really wicked concert. So I would say Avenged Sevenfold
Yeah,
for
and they
sure.
put on a hell of a concert. Stage presence and everything else. And so I was thoroughly surprised by a band called the Fever 333.
Yeah,
Oh
Um,
yeah, they're good.
they, seeing them live, they have such a stage presence. They're all over the stage. Stage presence, and the arts and the visuals kind of can make or break a set, I guess you would say. And they kicked ass on it. So that's always kind of stood out with me. That was 4 years ago that I saw them play. But just it stuck in my mind because the way they were on stage and their stage antics and the
mm,
how they had everything prepared on stage. Um, again, I'm super visual. I like visual arts and things like that. So that stuff catches my attention. And yeah, I went into the mosh pit that day, and yeah, I don't think I'm going to go back in the mosh pit again because I'm just a little too old, and it took me about a week to feel better. I felt like I got ran over by a train. So
yeah, no kidding.
I'll
I
stand
haven't
on the
seen them live, but I've seen videos, and that seems like it'd be a pretty crazy show, like just packed with energy, eh?
absolutely. And now I'll just stand on the border of the mosh pit and push people back in, and just kind of
Yeah,
form the barrier. Um, but yeah, now it's crazy. Everyone wants to be a ninja in the mosh pit, and they start swinging their arms and kicking, and I'm just like, come on, guys! Like I don't want to get punched in the mouth. Just run into me,
yeah, just here to have a good time, eh?
right?
Not get beaten up.
It's like what do
Yeah,
they
but
call that? Hardcore dancing or something?
I'd call it ninja dancing. I'm just like I
I've
don't even
heard that
know, like. Because growing up when we moshed, it was literally you just ran into each other and slung into each other and ran in circles. But now it's like flinging your arms, doing karate kicks, like trying to be a Power
Yeah,
Ranger or something. I don't
it's a
know, but
little much. Yeah, yeah, it's
right,
a little too
no.
advanced, I think.
But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited. The end of May, we have Welcome to Rockville here in Daytona. I skipped last year because the pandemic. I was, like I said, I was still kind of iffy last year about it. And even last year drew 160,000 people.
Wow.
So this year, things are opening, back up and states are opening. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was 250,000 this year. I think everyone's ready to get out and go enjoy some music. So 4 days, we got Nine Inch Nails, we got Kiss, Guns N' Roses, so many great bands. So it's going to be an epic time, and yeah, I'm super stoked for that. As far as up in Ontario area, do you guys have any huge festivals like that, or
Um, we do, but nothing to that nothing to that capacity. I don't think. I'm just trying to think.
The biggest one would be Fort Fest
Yeah, well, locally,
locally. Yeah.
but in terms of Ontario, I mean, like we're about a 6 hour drive from Toronto. So we're Thunder Bay, like we're kind of isolated. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere. We're in northwestern Ontario, and we're about an 8 hour drive from Winnipeg.
okay?
So we're kind of isolated in that respect, but we have some pretty cool shows here. Like like Thunder Bay's been able to pull some pretty cool acts, but in terms of like a huge festival, we have a few festivals locally. Like we have one called Wake the Giant, and that's kind of like at the marina, and that they pull a bunch of acts from all over the place. Or Blues Fest, or
Canada Day.
Canada Day, which
Yeah.
we were lucky enough to play a couple of years. So but yeah, you'd have to kind of go to Toronto, I think, Donnie, to get like any festival of that magnitude. And even then, I don't think you aren't pulling a 250,000 audience. I don't think.
Right.
No.
So all depends.
So what's one thing that you would like the fans to know about the band Ultimatum?
One thing I'd like people to know, like if they haven't heard us, is that our kind of objective is to bring something to the table of music, right? we're not trying to capitalize for music. We're not trying to do something that's been done before. We're trying to be innovative and bring new ideas to the table, and just listen to a bunch of different artists. And through that process, we were able to create our own unique sound. And we just want that sound to continue to grow and fester. And we want to continue to share that with people. So to those who haven't heard us yet, we would just, we would love for people to check out the music. And like I said, that's our kind of our main objective, is just to share our music with as many people across the globe as possible. Because we get a real thrill out of that too. We take it very seriously, right? It's an extension of who we are and our personalities. Like Brendan and I, we've been together since grade 9,
Okay.
since high school, right? And then we met James Cole, our bass player, in 10, in the grade 10, and then we met Sam Muka, our singer, as soon as we graduated from high school. But there's six of us. There's our producer Russ Elder, and Richard Lawrence as well, who's the web designer. And so it's kind of like there's 6 of us, but there's 4 musicians, right? But in Ultimatum, there's 6 individuals. And I don't know, we all really work hard, and we put our heart and soul into what we do. And like I said, we just want to share that with people. And if people like it, that's amazing, right? And if people don't like it, we still just appreciate the feedback, and we appreciate people reaching out and having conversations and just giving it a try, right? So like you said, my favorite part of interviews is when people try to compare us to other artists, because I don't think,
difficult. It's like,
I don't think we've ever heard the same artist twice, ever. I don't know if you have, but
so I've heard people say you sound like Nirvana, and it's like, what? Like,
yeah,
it's like, where did that come from, right? But it's like, to each their own. Everyone has their own unique sound that goes on in their head. And they can relate it in some way or another, right?
Yeah, and I would say with you guys, it was the hardest. Usually, I've always had a passion for music, so I can pick up on all kinds of bands or sounds that would draw me to think of who you sounded similar to. And with you guys, I'm just like, I sat and I'm like, the piano reminds me of Elton John, but the vocals aren't Elton John. Mumford and Sons comes into mind, just because of the music and how they kind of they're very loud and upbeat. Not that you're not upbeat, but your vocals are soothing and a little bit softer than Mumford and Sons per se. So
absolutely, yeah, and I think that's the biggest compliment we can receive, I think, as artists now. So thank you for that, Donnie, because having someone say that, like, I can't really compare you to anyone else, or it sounds completely different. That to me as an artist is like the biggest compliment that we can receive today. So that's very, very cool.
And surprise, you guys are playing a song for us. I spoke with your producer. He didn't tell you, but no, I'm just playing.
Yeah.
He's looking like, I didn't talk to this guy. Like,
That's exactly what he did. He's just in the corner here. So,
but yeah, so I'm going to play a little bit of the song "In My Blood." Excuse me. We played a little bit at the intro, and for the folks that are here now that are just arriving, we're going to play a little bit for you just so you can get a little bit of a taste. This is unreleased, to be determined when it will be out. And that is my favorite part, when it goes upbeat and it's so soothing at first, and then it's like boom, right up to the top. So
thank you
so
so much.
that's a sneak peek for you folks. Unreleased music by Altamadum, and that will be coming out as a single here in the future. Unsure when, but you can always follow Altamadum at altamadum.com. You can follow them on their IG handle. Your IG handle is
Just Ultimatum. Yeah,
Okay.
it's spelled just how it is in the photo there. Altamadum.
Okay.
And
So make
studio
sure
is
you check them out. Make sure you go give them a like, a follow, check out their music, support them any way that you can. Check out the website. There are super cool articles from Scotland, from Canada, from all over the place that have been written in magazines about Ultimatum and the band itself. So it's been a pleasure having you guys on the show. And it's absolute pleasure. And I'm gonna go jam out to In My Blood here shortly after this. And any final departing words for the fans out there?
Actually, just wanted to say thank you, Donnie, for taking the time and doing this. We're definitely a fan of the show, and we've been following you closely over the last couple of weeks, and it's been our pleasure, buddy. So thank you for having us and taking the time out and having a conversation. It's been awesome.
Absolutely, you guys are welcome on the show more anytime. So when you drop In My Blood, hit me up. We could do a release party, whatever you guys want to do. You're always welcome on the show. And thanks for coming on the show as an artist. And folks, until next time, remember, keep it sloppy. And I hope we pleasured your ear holes just for a little bit.
Absolutely. Thank you.